Good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. You know, after April 28th, New Democrats had to deal with a new political reality in Parliament. And as we review the year that has passed and as we come to the close of the fall session of this Parliament, I think it's fair to say that the New Democrats have shown that we are relevant, strong, united, and a very important voice in the House of Commons. You know, Donald Trump's trade war has created economic uncertainty to the point where I think it's fair to say that we have a crisis in this country that has affected all walks of life. It's affected people in every corner of our country, and Canadians are worried about everything from the cost of groceries to whether they have an affordable place to live to whether or not they're going to have a job next year. And New Democrats set out, starting last May, to make sure that the voice of working people was expressed loudly and clearly in the House of Commons. And I think we have succeeded in doing that. We are the only party who consistently and reliably brings the dreams, the aspirations, the experiences, and the realities of working families to the halls of power in Ottawa. I'll give you a couple of examples of the impact that we've had this session. Millions of Canadian children will ultimately have access to a school nutrition program because the work that we did ended up forcing this government to make that program permanent. 6 million Canadians now get access to dental care because of the work that we did last Parliament and the pressure that we have continued to put on this government to not halt or reverse that gain. Finally, we're the only party that has consistently stuck up for the rights of workers to free collectively bargain. You know, when workers face a crisis in the economy, one of the few powers they have is the power to join a union and to fight for better wages and working conditions in their places of work through organized labor. And we sat and watched the Liberals repeatedly trample that right by invoking Section 107 to order striking workers back to work, whether it's flight attendants at Air Canada or Canada Post employees or workers on the ports or the rails of this country. And the New Democrats were the only party that ever stood up in the House and fought against those anti-labor positions. Certainly the Conservatives didn't. So as we reflect on 2025, I can tell you that we have a caucus that is united, strong, working cohesively, and I think that we can justly take some pride in the fact that I think our voice is relevant, strong, and needed more than ever in this country. And we are we look forward to 2026 with a lot of enthusiasm as we continue to rebuild our party, to grow, and of course we'll end up having an exciting leadership race that will happen in the first 3 months of 2026. And I look very forward to continuing this rebuild of what I think is a very important Canadian institution, the New Democratic Party of Canada. Finally, I'll just say, if I heard one thing consistently in 2025, it's that Canadians do not want a US-style two-party system. One of the strengths of Canadian democracy is that we have a range of choices, a diversity of perspectives, and that makes our governance stronger. And so I look forward to continuing our work to make sure that the New Democratic Party of Canada remains and continues to be a strong voice in Parliament and across our country. Thanks. I look forward to any questions you might have.
When you look at the Carney government right now, how do you compare it to the Trudeau government prior? What are the main issues in style in regards of Parliament work also have changed and are comparable?
Well, I think the first thing that's quite obvious is that the Carney government is a right-of-centre government. There's just no question about it. I mean, there's not a single person that could look at the policies the Carney government has implemented since they took office in April and say that there's an ounce of progressive instinct in this government. They have stolen policy after policy from Pierre Poilievre's playbook, and I think it's the most conservative government, maybe more conservative than Paul Martin.
But they did protect the programs that you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Isn't that a testament of maybe they are still progressive in some ways?
No. I mean, saying you're not going to roll back healthcare is at best centrist. But every other policy from from building pipelines to eliminating environmental protections to trampling the rights of labor. I mean, these things are things you'd expect from a Conservative government. I would also say as well that this government has also shown an unwillingness to reach across party lines in a minority parliament and work together. That's a difference, I think, from the previous Liberal administration.
How would you say this Parliament has functioned? We've heard a lot of complaints from the Liberal government that a lot of key pieces of their legislation have been held up. How would you assess how Parliament is functioning this round?
That's a great question. I think it's a little early to tell. I think this Parliament is still trying to find its feet. New Democrats don't sit on committees. I think that's a detriment to the functioning of this Parliament because it leaves the Conservatives and Bloc to have controlling majorities on committees. And I think you're starting to see indications from those parties that they're going to play games at committee and block legislation. When there's New Democrats at committee, it gives a third option. So I think in the new year, you're going to see how the opposition parties, the Bloc and the Conservatives, deal with that, whether or not we make Parliament work or not. Look, I'm a Jack Layton New Democrat. He always told us that the number one priority of a parliamentarian is to try to make Parliament work for Canadians. That's our first obligation. That's why Canadians send us here. They don't send us here to fight. They don't send us here to play games. They send us here to have serious discussions about solutions to the real problems people are facing. And let's face it, I mean, 2025 was a really tough year for Canadians. I can't remember a more serious economic crisis, in my 17 years in Parliament than I've experienced here, maybe 2008. But people are really struggling. And so I look to the Carney government in 2026 to demonstrate that they understand they're in a minority parliament and that they have to work across party lines if they're going to get solutions. They haven't shown that willingness yet, but New Democrats are going to continue to offer constructive solutions and proposals, and we're prepared to work with them to bring progressive solutions to the real problems that working families are facing.
Do you think that the way that the committees are going, that the Liberals might have a bit more of an appetite to try to get you guys in committees, give you the resources, that kind of thing, or is your understanding that that's not the problem and that it's the Bloc and the Conservatives that are preventing those things from those extra resources and getting you on committees? Is like, where is the issue there, and do you think that there might be more of an appetite for you guys?
Well, we'll see. I mean, back in June when I was advocating to give New Democrats official party status, that's one of the arguments I made, is that committees will function better. Okay. I forget. Yeah. Can you repeat the question, Mark?
So it was just about the way that the committees are going, and just whether you think there might be more of an appetite, and what exactly is in the way of that? Like, is it the Liberals, or is it the opposition, the other opposition parties? Just if you can reflect on that, I guess.
Well, this is one of the arguments I made in June when I was seeking official party status, was that Parliament will function better if New Democrats are on committees. And that would require an adjustment to an arbitrary number, 12 seats. Every province in this confederation has at one time or another adjusted the numbers required for official party status. There's nothing magical about 12. The Liberals chose not to do that, and I think they're reaping the sorrows of that now. So it's up to the Liberals to answer. It's up to Liberals because I believe official party status would require an amendment to the Parliament of Canada Act, and so if the Liberals wanted to do that, they could pass that with New Democrat support. So that's up to them. But even if that doesn't happen, it's not about the NDP. It's about, can we make this Parliament work in a functional way to produce results? I think yesterday we saw an example with the Conservatives playing games. I mean, amending their own motion halfway through the day clearly showed that they weren't clear on what they wanted to do and were more interested in making a political spectacle out of natural resource development than coming to real solutions. So, and I'm going to be calling on Mr. Carney to recognize that he's in a minority parliament. And if he wants this parliament to work and he wants to do anything progressive, he's going to have to reach out to New Democrats, and we're going to continue to make ourselves available for that.
Just on Parliament working and the legislative progress or lack thereof, we've got, I think it's about 4 bills since June that have been passed a bunch more that are sort of waiting at different stages. In terms of the strategy and some of the tactics we've seen the Liberals employ, whether it's omnibus bills or the like, do you think that they're getting they're as successful as they could be, or these sort of tactics are going to have some diminishing returns, as it were, as we've seen a lot of sort of good faith getting burned on them?
Well, 4 bills in 8 months doesn't scream success to me. So the answer would be they're not as successful as they could be because, again, they've been very slow to realize that they don't have a majority. You can't get anything done, nothing, in this House of Commons unless the Liberals have the support of another party. So in order to get that, they have to do a better job reaching across party lines and working together to obtain that support. I hope that that's starting to become more clear to them. But I think up to now, their lack of legislative progress is a clear sign that they haven't been successful with that.
And if they don't work with others, what's your prediction of when the next election will be?
Well, I think that 2026, the window for an election opens. I think the spring is when, credibly, it'll be a year after the last election. And if the Liberals are not successful in making this Parliament work, it could be as soon as that. I'm not predicting that, and I'm not saying that's desirable, but I think that's when it could happen. And again, I reiterate that Canadians sent us here after the last election to address their problems and find solutions. That's what they want us. They don't want another election, I don't think. What they want is some concrete improvement to the unaffordability crisis that they face. So I haven't given up on this Parliament. I'm still here with my New Democrat colleagues to do everything we can to make it work, to find solutions, and that's what we'll be bringing as our spirit in 2026, this place.
And just to rewind a little bit about not having official party status, I'm wondering if you can reflect on that. How difficult has it been for you as a party and for yourself personally as a leader?
Well, it's been a challenge. It's a new reality for us. I've been in this place when we had 103 seats and hundreds of staff, and now in a parliament with 7 MPs and not nearly the staff. It's been challenging because Parliament is complex, as you know. It moves fast and it changes. And especially in a minority Parliament where, I think I said this to Liberals in June, we shouldn't be afraid of nuclear war. We should be afraid of nuclear accident. And so for us to function as a reliable partner in this place, we need to know what's happening. And we need to know what legislation is coming in order for us to do our job. So it's been challenging in that respect, but one thing about New Democrats, I think we've punched above our weight. I think we're relevant. People want to know what we have to say. We represent 1.2 million Canadians. And again, I think we're the only party in this place that is speaking up for working families across this country. And that hasn't changed.
Do you have any thoughts on Mark Wiseman as a potential replacement for Kirsten Hillman in Washington?
No, other than just to say that Ms. Hillman has, I think, done an outstanding job for Canada. And I want to thank her on behalf of the New Democratic Party for her service and I think the superb way that she has navigated what has to be maybe the hardest diplomatic post that Canada has. And so I wish her all the best in her next endeavor and want to thank her for her service.
Just on the U.S. file, did you expect Mark Carney to be Prime Minister for this long and for him not to get a deal and to put this whole trade situation with the U.S. to rest? Are you surprised it's taking this long?
Well, I would say I'm disappointed that it has. I would say, the main issue in the last election was who's best to deal with Donald Trump and who's best to handle the economic situation. He very famously said he was taking an elbows-up approach, and quite honestly, I think it's a fair comment to say that we've seen nothing but unilateral concession after concession after concession by the Carney government to Donald Trump without obtaining a single thing in return. And, that's just the record that I see. And so I'm surprised by that, I'm disappointed by that, and we have to do better because Canadians are expecting their government to stand strongly for Canada. And I know Donald Trump is not an easy person to deal with. We all recognize that. But at the same time, the negotiating tactics and strategy of this government have to bear fruit, and they're not. That's also a reality. Donald Trump's difficult to deal with. We're also not getting anything. Both those things are true. And so I'm hoping that we can stand up stronger for Canada in 2026. You know, New Democrats want to work in a united fashion on behalf of all Canadians to defend Canada, to make us more independent, to defend our sovereignty, and frankly, to build our own economy. I think this is a great opportunity for our country, born out of crisis perhaps, for us to come out of this stronger than we've ever been. And I'm hoping to see Mr. Carney lead that battle next year, and New Democrats will be there to push him every step of the way.
Monsieur Boulerice, peut-être sur Monsieur Wiseman, si on peut vous entendre, quel message ça pourrait envoyer au Québec si on avait un ambassadeur qui serait contre la gestion de l'offre?
Oui, merci de M. Davies. Premièrement, je ne suis pas en retard. J'avais la première déclaration de la période de questions. J'ai répondu à votre collègue Christian Noël à l'entrée, mais je peux envoyer la même réponse. Évidemment, pour nous, au NPD, on a toujours été des défenseurs de la gestion de l'offre pour protéger nos fermes au Québec, nos agriculteurs, mais aussi ailleurs au pays. Et là, d'avoir un ambassadeur qu'on enverrait aux États-Unis qui ne croit pas en la gestion de l'offre avant même que les négociations commencent, ça envoie un très, très mauvais signal à l'administration Trump.
Est-ce qu'on peut juste entendre sur les importations russes au Canada qui ont augmenté de 30 % dans la dernière année? Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça?
Bien, c'est une autre preuve que la politique de sanctions du Canada envers le régime de Vladimir Poutine n'est pas sérieuse. Que ce soit le gel des avoirs russes, que ce soit les échanges qu'on fait avec ce pays-là, et la preuve qu'on continue à acheter des biens et des produits russes alors qu'on est supposé d'aider l'Ukraine à gagner cette guerre-là où ils sont victimes d'une sauvage agression depuis près de 3 ans, ça montre que le gouvernement Carney n'est pas sérieux.
Il y a moyen de dire quelque chose en français et en anglais. Alors, c'est à propos de la course du leadership. Are you worried that there's so little French amongst the candidates that you're not going to get any votes in Quebec? Or maybe you'll get some, but I'm just saying, how worried are you about that?
C'est sûr qu'en ce moment, on a vu au débat à Montréal qu'il y avait encore beaucoup d'améliorations à faire pour l'apprentissage du français dans les candidats et les candidates, mais je connais certains d'entre eux et je sais qu'ils sont vraiment engagés et qui font des efforts considérables. On est au début de la course. On verra qui va gagner au congrès du NPD à Winnipeg, mais moi, je suis convaincu que tout le monde est très sincère et fait des réels efforts pour apprendre le français. Et le jour où on sera rendu en élection, ils pourront communiquer avec les Québécois francophones.
So, but the fact that there's very little French, do you think that's going to cut into your any support you could have in Quebec?
You know, we'll see who's going to win the leadership race. We all, agreed on the fact that there's still progress to be made. I know them, a couple of them personally, and they are really committed in speaking French to Quebecers and Francophones all across Canada. And I'm convinced that it's going to be fine when the election will come. It's a question of respect for Francophones in Quebec and elsewhere.
Have you decided if you're going to make an endorsement at all?
No decision at all. C'est bon?
Thank you very much. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Stay safe. Thank you.